I'm Rob, aka Jesta ThaRogue, conductor of the Court of Cardboard, and you are my trusty truth-telling tribunal. Together, one by one, we're putting the games on my shelf on trial. The games will plead their case, and only the innocent will earn a spot on the shelves. The guilty, sold without appeal. Now taking the stand, Mechs versus Minions. Power up your command lines, the court is in session. And of course, the court documents will remain sealed, spoiler-free testimony only. A League of Legends side mission gone rogue, or a top-tier campaign in its own right? Let's open the mission briefing on Mechs vs Minions. You're a team of Yordle pilots learning to control powerful mechs. Together you'll take on a growing army of minions threatening your school. You'll need teamwork, quick thinking and a little luck to make it through. It's chaotic, it's risky, but that's mech training for you. Each mission has its own goal, like delivering an object, surviving waves of enemies or defeating a boss. And if your team achieves it before being overwhelmed or running out of time, you win. So follow the mission briefing, work together and don't let the minions win. Time to break down the basics. How do you pilot your mech, what stands in your way, and what does glorious victory look like? Each player pilots a customizable mech on a shared mission. Each round begins with a draft where players choose command cards like movement, turning or attacks. These are slotted into their mech's command line, building a sequence of actions that will play out in the order they're placed. Once programmed, all mechs execute their commands whether it helps, hinders or causes complete chaos. The more cards of one type in a slot, the more powerful the effect when resolved, but it will lead to fewer actions overall. After the mechs act, a wave of minions swarm the board. They follow simple movement patterns, but their sheer numbers and persistence can quickly become overwhelming. Taking damage scrambles your command line with damage cards, adding unpredictable effects and making future turns more chaotic. Do the gears of gameplay mesh well with the world of Yordles and magic tech, or does it feel bolted on? So Mechs vs Minions of course is based on League of Legends, and my knowledge of League of Legends is incredibly limited. In fact, it goes as far as pretty much playing this game. I also watched the Arcane anime on Netflix and really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the world it was set in as well, which is one of the reasons I came back to play this game. I've never played the video game and I heard it has a very toxic community, which has put me off even trying. But the game itself, it has baddies and runes and weapons and magic and technology and all that stuff, all that things I've heard about from League of Legends, so it all seems to fit. I don't know much, but it feels right. And the story that the game tells as it unfolds is a pretty decent one. And that's helped by the fact that each individual mission is a continuation of the previous one, giving you a long arching story broken into different pieces. Is deployment smooth and the manual readable, or is it more error message than mission log? For the rulebook, we'll touch on this a bit more later, but it does introduce rules one at a time. You play a simple tutorial first, which starts small with just a couple of tiles, a few minions, and then obviously that builds up over time, introducing new rules as you go. You can teach the game out of the initial tiny little tutorial book as you go. You don't need to teach the whole thing up front. But as we're talking about setup, there is a lot of trays in the game, and each one is quite heavy and quite flimsy. So you need to sort of move it and put it somewhere, and if you're someone like me who doesn't have space, you have to sort of hold it in your hand while you dig through the box finding what you want, then you put them back, and it can slow down setup just a little bit. Digging through those trays of content is a bit of a chore. For example, one mission I did, it had the full setup over 2 pages of the rulebook. Got everything out of the box, set it all up on the table, and it was fine. So I put all the bits of the box, because like I said, I was holding it. I didn't really have room anyway to put them down, so I put them back in the box. Then I flipped over the page of the rulebook, and it says, oh, and now you need this board, and that board was at the bottom of the box, so I had to go digging through the box just to get that one board back out. It was a pain. So if you have the space to be able to take things out of the box and keep them out, or even take everything out the trays and keep things stacked up while you play the whole campaign, that would be great. But if you haven't and you're limited with space and time like me, it poses a problem. Let's take a closer look at the hardware. Are the mechs mighty? Are the minions many? Is the insert actually useful? The evidence is on the table. I mean, this is a 10 out of 10, right? There are many levels of top quality components in the very nice storage boxes, as I mentioned earlier. As much of a chore as it is when you don't have the room, if you do have the room, it is perfect. Everything here, even the card stock of the cards is very nice. The minis are solid. The mechs that you get in the game, the mechs that you play as, are pre-painted and look really nice. This big boy poking out the box could be cool, I'll never tell. Now I bought this when it first came out in 2012, 2013. I think it cost £65, which even then, well, a great price for a game with the amount of stuff in the box, considering the number of minis you get. You get hundreds of the little minions. Well, at least 100, maybe just under. I don't know how many there is, there's a lot. I've never counted, it's too many to count. The most recent version when it was available was £85, available from the Riot Games website. Currently at the moment on eBay it's going for £160, and you can get it on the Board Game Geek Market for about £120. I wonder if that resale value will play to my final verdict in any way. Is this a tutorial mission or a tactical briefing nightmare? Let's see how easy it is to boot up a new pilot. So the tutorial starts with a basic. There isn't even any enemies on the board. You just get used to drafting your cards, you get used to placing them, you get used to moving, and you get used to attacking. So there's nothing really much to do there. Then after a few rounds, you'll complete a task, and then the game will change it, it'll add enemies to the board and introduce what damage does to you. And then a few rounds, it adds some other small rules, plus a sand timer for timing your drafting phase. So it introduces the rules a little bit at a time, as I mentioned before, and each of those individual rules itself is pretty simple. Then the problem is each new rule is locked in its own rule book, which is a hidden mission envelope. So while new rules and things are hidden in envelopes, so you won't get any spoilers, which is good. If you want to go back and find a rule, you have to try and remember which rule book it's in, which is not the easiest of things to remember. But one good thing, a lot of the rules are mission specific, so you'll just use them for the mission you're in. So you've got that rule book, and then when you've moved on for that mission, you can put that back in the envelope, return it to the box, and you won't need it again. Is this the only mech in town, or does it share DNA with other programming puzzlers? Now, I haven't played too many programming games, not in a way that this game works. I played Robo Rally, which is a game where you're programming robots trying to get around a course. It's a competitive race, and as it happens in Mechs vs Minions, you program your bots, but things go wrong as you're progressing through the race, so that's sort of similar that way, but it is a competitive race, not a cooperative game. And I also played Robot Cross Arena, which isn't programming, but it is a competitive battle with your bots, and you're using deck building to move your bots around. It's nothing like this. I've never played anything like this that is a programming game and co-op, not me personally. If there is one out there, please let me know what it is. The code's been run, the bugs revealed, time to tally up the glitches and the glory. So each mission is a fun challenge. The programming is fun. It's chaotic in a good way when it goes wrong, because you never know what's going to happen. You might get some damage that switches the cards on your control panel, so when you were going to move forward and then attack, you're now going to attack and move forward, which means you'll miss on your next turn, which is good fun. You get waves and waves of minions coming at you a lot of the time, because a lot of the time they spawn all around the board every round, so you've constantly got them coming at you. But because your weapons are so powerful, you're just wiping them out. Makes you feel really, really good. The components are great, as we mentioned already. There's plenty of them, and they are really nice. And discovering the game gradually as you go and introducing new and surprising things for each mission is really good fun. It's also easy to reset, because the cards that come locked in the different mission packs in those envelopes, they have a number on so that you can put them back afterwards, which is good. But most people I know have already played it, they've already seen everything. If I played it with them, I won't be discovering things. A lot of the times they've played through it and they've seen enough, that's it. They don't want to play it again, so I'm kind of playing it solo because I've got no one to play it with. The sand timer times out at about 45 seconds, which is good. It's plenty of time, even if you're playing solo. There's often enough time to draft a card for each of the 4 mechs if you're playing 4-player like I am. And in missions where you need to be precise, that drafting can take a bit longer. When you're drafting 4 minions with one 45-second sand timer, sometimes you can get 2 or 3 done, and then the rest you're going to have to place cards randomly or choose cards randomly because you haven't got to them, because you're looking at the player boards and looking at the board, trying to get specific cards to put in specific slots on the board so you can get to where you need to be. So sometimes you run out of time, so that time pressure is actually, I quite like it. But it does take up a lot of table space. Obviously you've got tiles that are quite big that go on the board, and you've got multiples of those made up of each mission. You've also got a big board to manage some other things. Each player board is quite long as well, and obviously I've got 4 of these because I'm playing with 4 mechs, and they have stuff off to either side as well, so it does cause issues a little bit for table space. And the programming isn't always good. Now when things go wrong, it is good fun, and when bots veer off to the side because you took some damage and now they're rotating left, for example, so now they're going the wrong way, it is good fun. But when there's a level that requires precision, when you need mechs to go out to specific places or out somewhere and back, when you need that precision, having that chaos isn't helpful at all, and it can make the game drag on. So the last mission I did took about 90 minutes because my mechs kept taking damage, which messed up the programming, which means I couldn't get them to where they needed to be in order to finish the mission. Now it was good fun because I was just absolutely destroying these minions that were coming at me every single round, but after 90 minutes, after 45 minutes, after 60 minutes, after 75 minutes, and then after 90 minutes, each of those 15-minute blocks, I started to just think, shall I just say I've won this and move on to the next one, because it's taking a bit too long. What's the mission report from the wider command network? Here's what others are logging. So it's rated 8.0 from 18,000 ratings on Board Game Geek. That is 83rd place overall. So whatever you think of the board game rankings, even if you're really against them, you've got to admit that to get into the top 100, you need to have a lot of positive votes. So to be a top 100 game is really good. And 83rd, that's brilliant for a game like this. Let's look at some of those reviews, and Bimdav gave it 8.5, says the decisions are interesting and even when things go south, it's good fun, and I agree with that. I believe that's pronounced Mui, maybe, 8.5, literally infinite miniatures. I don't think that's what the word literally means. Talty rated it a 2, and they're a person of few words, they just said horrible. And Worker Pliment rated it a 2 and says the worker placement in this game is terrible. A bit of bias there, I think, from the worker placement fan. Finally, Near4422 also rated it 2 and said the game is extremely frustrating to play. You have close to no control over your character, and once you fall into a punishing loop, you are even more limited. And this is what I was saying, the chaos is fun, but when the chaos starts to get you away from the mission starts to get away from you, and it starts to take longer and longer, that chaos becoming fun starts to decrease. Does this mech remain deployed to the shelf or get scrapped for parts and sold for salvage? Now, it's fun to play and it looks great. They are the two main things I look for in a board game. So for me, perfect. But it does have that limited lifespan. Part of the fun comes from uncovering the game as you go. As you know, with any game with hidden components, every time you get to a point where you get to unlock something or open an envelope or open a box or find something new about the game, that's the best part. Now, a copy of the game is already used. As you can see, some of the envelopes, because I've been playing it, the envelopes are open, so it's not going to get any worse than that unless I decide to completely destroy it, which I'm not going to do. So my copy of the game is already a used copy. The game is currently out of print. I don't think there's any plans to bring it back either, so it's not going to drop in value. But my verdict is guilty. But the sentence is suspended until I can march through as much of the campaign as I dare to solo and see as much of the game as possible. The testimony is complete. How would you rule? Is Mechs vs Minions innocent of shelf space crimes, or should it be banished from the collection? Drop your verdict in the comments. Remember to like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Insta at JestaThaRogue and find the blog at JestaThaRogue.com. I've been Rob, aka JestaThaRogue. I'll see you soon.